You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
We are back for the final time in the month of May. It's the Friday edition of Leafs Morning Take presented by Bet365. Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill. What's up, buddy? How are you?
May went by way too fast. Too fast. Why, grind it out for you?
Felt like it was 83 days long as I decompressed yet another choke job in the playoffs.
Yeah, I guess if you go back to the beginning, maybe that's why I was buzzing around T-Dot and stuff, but it's, we just got hurled into June here. I guess it's good. Weather's good. Are you guys still getting crap out east? We're 32 degrees and gorge lately.
That makes no sense. The weather has been dog shit here. Today's actually really nice, but it's felt like the fall, which is really, really weird, right? Like, yeah, it's been cold. It's been damp. It's been raining. I don't know what's going on. Yeah.
Well, for once, Alberta's got a leg up on you in the weather department, but no, May's over. We're in the Stanley Cup final. When people say finals, even on TV and broadcasters, I'm like, ugh, I don't know why that kind of bugs me, but it's not the NBA. It's the final without an S.
I get that. I guess you can call it finals because it's games plural, but I agree.
It's like when you're in Newfoundland and you call it St. John, and they're like, it's John's, or vice versa when you're in the other one. So, yeah, get it right, people. Say my wife's name right. So that's exciting. We got to wait like 6 days for it, which is kind of weird. They're going to get a lot of rest. So we better see some good hockey. These boys will be ready to rock.
Yes, sir. Our Super Chat charity partner this season is Sick Kids. Want to make sure that your question or comment gets on the show. Hit us up with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research-intensive children's hospital in Canada and 3rd in the world. So as you referenced, a rematch. This time the Oilers will have home ice advantage. What's your view on the Stanley Cup finals? I thought both conference finals were ass kickings, Rosie.
Yeah, they were. I'm kind of surprised that Dallas kind of laid down the way they did. A little bit of life from the Hurricanes at the end there. But I think I don't know. I have to apologize. Screw that. I'm not apologizing to anybody. But I have to admit that I was wrong about the Oilers, man. They were limping in. Skinner, I was like, they were banged up. Their D weren't deep enough. I was like, guys, your shot was last year. It's not going to happen again. I didn't see the Oil getting back to the final, but here they are. So I was wrong in that one. I hope they do it. I'd like to see Connor get his cup so we can leave and come to Toronto, which is what's going to happen if he wins. And I don't want the Dirty Cats to be a dynasty, even though they might already be in a modern day sense. But it's going to be a battle. I don't know if they can get by Florida, man. That team is just God, and Edmonton's got its own stuff going on. They're kind of a yo-yo, but their good is so damn good, and maybe they've learned from last year. I don't know. Do you think Florida's as good this year as they were last year, or better?
I think they're better. Their blue line specifically now picking up Seth Jones, but I think injuries are going to be a big conversation. Like Eetu Luostarinen, who's been unbelievable in this run for the Panthers, goes down in Game 5. What's his status moving forward? Reinhart, same conversation for him. AJ Greer has been a big cog since being inserted in the lineup against the Maple Leafs. And, of course, Zach Hyman on the other side. But the thing that's really impressed me about Edmonton, it hasn't been for the first time ever, I think, specifically about McDavid and Draisaitl. I think the depth has been incredible. The stat I heard last night was marveling, man. They have 8 different guys that have scored 5+ goals here in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Like, just think about that depth, how vital it is, how important it is, where they don't even skip a beat last night, and they're missing Zach Hyman. Like, Jeff Skinner elevates, and guys like Frederick. And I that's why I believed in Edmonton to begin with before the playoffs, and they really look like a team that has figured out how to play and win in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And that's why I'm excited for the Stanley Cup final. I have the Oilers winning it. I think Florida, everything you said, I understand. They're a difficult team. I just feel like it's McDavid's time, man.
Yeah, maybe it just doesn't really work that way. It's not magic and it's not a fairy tale. It doesn't really work that way. But I guess yeah, hopefully they don't go down 3 Cobb again. Like, doesn't that sum up the Oilers? Yeah, so they get to Stanley Cup Finals. They go down 3-0. Everyone writes them off, but they roar back to tie the series and force a game 7. My God, that is kind of a Leafy thing to do, to be honest. But it's going to be a good series. We'll see. I don't
Yeah.
know. And like you say, McDavid and Draisaitl, they haven't been like, people have always said you can't hang your hat on 2 players that hard, no matter how good they are. It's just going to catch up with you, and they haven't even done that. So I mean, if those guys want to like really show up and really pop off, and maybe that Stanley Cup hangover will show up in the final for the Florida Panthers, and they just won't have the jam to get through a monstrous series, and maybe the Oilers will be so hungry and desperate to say we cannot lose another one in the final this year. Maybe it'll be enough to get them over the hump, but that is why we watch. It'll be pretty exciting. I don't know, part of me also is just like, let the Cats win so that the Leafs can look better by comparison. There's always that old storyline, but it's going to be exciting. I guess there's been years in the past and eras where it's like, hey, can we see someone different? Like, we're tired of the same teams dominating. We need some mix up here, but I don't mind seeing this. There's a bunch of storylines. I think that, I don't know. What do you think in the States and different markets that aren't like the Maple Leafs? Do you think everyone's kind of pulling for the Oil? Do you feel that?
I don't know about that. I don't know what viewership's going to look like in the States, notwithstanding just the travel horrors in this series. Like, it's a tough back and forth. I feel for the media members that have to do it to begin with, but I don't know what the ratings are going to look like, because you would think the opportunity to watch Connor McDavid vie for a Stanley Cup would get eyeballs on the prize, but it just doesn't work that way in the States. So I don't know how a rematch fares. I don't know how, quite frankly, last year's did, but I tell you what, like, heads will roll if the Oilers can't get a save, because I do think that's a determining factor. If the Oilers can get a save, if Stuart Skinner can be even pedestrian, I think they win the Stanley Cup. I see a lot of similarities, weirdly enough, to Corey Crawford, man. One game, this guy's a Vezina winner. The next game, he's red light Rasico. Maybe find that medium in between, you know?
Yeah, that's it's probably a good comparison. I remember him. He's just kind of one of those goalies. You could look at Aiden Hill or Binnington
Mhm.
as one of those guys where it's like, I didn't think that this guy was like a Stanley Cup worthy, stealing a thing. Matt Murray as well has got a couple. But yeah, he's kind of hot or cold. It's like his good is certainly good enough to win. Obviously, look where they are, but his bad is just like atrocious. So he seems to have found it again, just like last year. Remember him getting yanked? I don't know if it was that Vancouver series or Dallas, but got yanked, and it looked like they had no hope in hell with their goaltender kind of losing his wheels. But then he just puts them back on and stands on his head. So it's part of the fun. What do you think in the States? Like, talk about viewership and interest. Like, what do you think the ideal scenario would be? Like Crosby versus McCann. Like, what? I don't even know if anyone gives a shit about that. What do you think the perfect scenario for U.S. viewership in the Stanley Cup Final would be?
Think it's got to be like big market teams, New York, Los Angeles, which we've had before.
Mm,
Something Chicago related. But it's a really good question. Like, I'm Canadian, so I've got no clue what happens there, clearly. And we get viewership regardless, I think, of a Stanley Cup final, specifically if you have an Edmonton team in there with Connor
yeah.
McDavid. But that's the one that gets me, is like how you grow the game in the States. How can there be a lack of eyeballs when Connor McDavid's on the ice? And then you throw in the Panthers. You're right to bring up the word dynasty, man. They're such a good team, and they're back for a third consecutive year. The stat that stood out for me too yesterday, Corey Perry is about to play in his 5th Cup final in the last 6 seasons, Rosie. Think about that. The Leafs haven't even played a conference final. Austin Matthews hasn't even played a conference final. This guy has been in 5 of 6 Stanley Cup finals.
Dude, he's a gamer, and he doesn't pussyfoot around either. Like, to be 40 years old, I'm looking at 40 this year, and to bang and slog and eat everything in front of the net the way you do in the playoffs through a run like the 5 that he's been on is impressive. And to still get, like, I wonder what he's like when he gets out of bed in the morning. Does it take a long time for him to get going? It's impressive, dude. He's 40 years old. An absolute gamer, scores a big one last night. Like, it's not like he's just kind of, that's kind of cool. He still finds a way to stay on the roster. He's like making an impact. It's unbelievable. I think he absolutely, maybe for anything, as much as anything else, Connor, yes, getting it done, but for him, man, like, he is my vintage. I think he's my draft year. I remember, Brian Burke running the Ducks when he got drafted. He was big on Getzlaff and Perry and these guys, Bobby Ryan, them putting some time in the minors. I was with Tampa's system playing in the American League and seeing those guys come around and being like, oh yeah, there's the big boys. Like, Berkey's got them in the minors for sure, wants them to ride the bus a little and get some pro experience under their belt. So to think that he's still going at the level that it takes from this day and age to play in the National League at a Stanley Cup final again and be a difference maker is unbelievable. So maybe that's a reason why I'm going to pull a little bit for the Oil, and just to have a Canadian team. I would love for the first Canadian team to break through to be Toronto. Ain't going to happen this year, but lots of cool storylines. Their depth. You mentioned Skinner. I remember I was playing when he was a rookie. And he was with Carolina, and I'm like, look at this fresh-faced little tit sucker. Like, he
still is that way.
I know, he doesn't look any different, but they're like the wily veteran of 15 years. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah,
like,
man.
he still looks like a baby, but when he came in, I was playing on, God, made me feel old. But again, their depth, you lose a guy, throw him in, and he's a guy that can get it done. They've built their roster pretty impressively, even though a lot of people rag on it for having its holes and not its depth and its D and goalie. I mean, they're getting her done, man. So it's going to be exciting.
Jeff Skinner will be like 50 years old. He'll still look and sound like he's 17 or 16. It's wild.
Like most guys in the league, man. It's weird. There's something in the water. I don't know what's going on.
I was asking you, like, where the hell are all the playoff beards? Like, there's a couple out there.
I know, and I'm not the gnarliest bearded dude in the world, so it's not that. But these rosy cheeks on, like, remember when just Todd Bertuzzi and just these men were just these lumberjacks? And I swear there's something in the water or something. There's no, nothing against the guys or the players, but it's a different look this generation.
In support of Sick Kids Dr. Greg O'Neill. We got a doctor watching our show today. I love that. Thoughts on the Bennett elbow on Anderson? I bet if he plays for Toronto, he gets paid $10 million, 45 points in 10 games of suspensions. Man, I want Bennett to sign with the Maple Leafs just to find out if he's officiated differently, because I guarantee he will be. If he pulls that stunt he did on Stolars, that's 50 games. If he does what he did to Freddie Anderson in Game 5, that's another 50 games. Repeat offender. It's crazy the way that, how much stuff this guy gets away with. And I was even thinking the other day, and I watched pretty closely last year, like Oliver Ekman-Larsson played that rugged style last year. It felt like every time I watched a Leaf game this year, which was every game, he was in the penalty box, right? Like are the Panthers officiated differently? Because, dude, the proof's going to be in the pudding. I don't know if you caught yesterday's show. John Shannon was saying how there's some people in the Panthers organization that think Sam's already made up his mind. He's going to Toronto. If Bennett does become a Maple Leaf, what does that look like? I would love to know that answer.
Where do I start? Well, my problem with that is we got Sam Bennett and he walks into town. It's, oh, he's here. He's here. Our savior, the guy that's going to get us over the playoff hump. And it's like, he's a 50-point guy. He's not a godsend. Like, and then everyone's going to rag on him in October. Why is he making an impact? Like, that's that is why it's hard. That is the media stuff that's always a narrative. That's why it's hard for guys to come here. That's why people do come here and don't perform. That's why people leave here and outperform what they did in Toronto. So I'm worried of that if he does come. But the reason you sign him is for Game 5, Game 3, Game 7, where these guys take the throttle. And that's everything that Brad Treliving talked about in his press conference, changing the identity of the team. And I can't remember the wording he used, but a big moment game. That's a big moment. That's a big moment or something. Yeah. Critical moments.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, how many Game 7s have the Toronto Maple Leafs gotten to? They've lost every single goddamn one, it feels like. And it's because it's a critical moment. And the DNA inside of that team, the leadership, the stars, they throttle back to about neutral and look around. And the big boys, the Florida Panthers, in the past it has been the Tampa Bay Lightning, it has been the Boston Bruins, they throttle down and wow, mow you over. And it's so friggin' predictable. That's what I think Treliving was talking about. And Sam Bennett is a guy who throttles it down and powers forward and says, it's a critical moment. I'm going to bring my best. And that is the missing piece of the Toronto Maple Leafs right now. It is why I don't think they're bringing back Mitch Marner, even though he's a very talented hockey player. I think that by doubling down on these types of players and the lack of success you could say that they've had by Brendan Shanahan is why he's not here anymore, whether, people agree with that or not. And I think that you need someone like Sam Bennett. So that blows my mind to say that people are already saying, like, who in the organization is going to let it leak to John Shannon that he's already made up his mind. It's very interesting to me. But we're gonna.
You're on a witch hunt this week about people getting stuff out there. Eh? Did you not play the game? People talk like it's pretty simple.
I know, but like, who talked? Like, who's talking to Sam? Where like everyone's very tight-lipped. Sam himself might not even have a clue where he's going. Like, I don't believe that Sam Bennett has his mind made up that he's coming to Toronto and he's told people that.
Well, for example, John Tavares, for example, John Tavares, when he left the island, I knew in January that he was thinking about it. How did I find out? Who knows? People talk. Then what happened? He went to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So
okay, well talk. Then let's go talk about all the rumors. Let's go talk about all the rumors that have been released that don't turn into shit. There's a lot more of those going out there. So I don't believe. I'm not saying that's not the case or that's not going to happen, but I don't buy into those and go, oh my God, he's coming to Toronto. I just say, oh yeah, there's a little tidbit of a nugget of information. And do you not agree that a lot of that stuff turns out to be false?
I agree that there's stuff that gets out there that's real and stuff that's not real.
Me too.
I mean, plain and simple. And I understand you're on a witch hunt this week to find out the perpetrators behind all this.
I just don't think Sam Bennett has told anyone, let alone like his wife, whether I'm going to Toronto, let alone all these pigeons that are like, I've heard from, like, I don't know, man. I don't think it's a done deal. I don't think maybe his mind's made up, but even if it was, I don't think he's leaking that to so-and-so where it gets to everybody. I just find that hard to believe, or at least I take it with a grain of salt. So, but at least it's leaning in the right direction if you want to be Sam Bennett. My question is, what do you pay the guy? And like all of a sudden you give him $10 million because he's like, well, I got to make up for what I would lose if I was playing in Florida with the cost of living and the taxes and everything. Now all of a sudden, like, what I don't like is when Leafs Nation turns on a person or on a contract, or it's very divided and the guy hasn't even stepped foot in Toronto and he is already being scrutinized for he's only a 50-point guy, and do you think that he's just he had all this pieces beside him and this isn't the Florida Panthers and he's gonna get, holy crap. It's just, I guess it's the nature of the beast, but bottom line, they need a guy like him. They need a guy who can do that stuff. And I mean, we started off this whole thing talking about the penalties and being called and if you'll be officiated different. I think the Florida Panthers get away with it because collectively everybody plays this style and everyone buys in and everyone has this identity. And it's just this big, rugged, like red machine that just goes through and plays hard and, plays smart, and they get away with it where, if a Leaf was doing that and you got the core four and the way they play and stuff, and then all of a sudden Ryan Reeves goes out there and elbows a goalie in the head, it's pretty easy to put your hand up, but they're sneaky about it. And it's not one single guy, and it's not this one event that has a huge spotlight on it. They're very sneaky about where they play. And why is that? It's because they play like that every single day, and every single guy adapts to it and adopts the mentality, and stuff falls through the greats when you do that. And maybe the Leafs are heading towards maybe adopting more of that mentality. I feel like Treliving kind of shines some light on that.
In support of Sick Kids, JD Anderson, thank you so much for the super chat. Dream scenario: Marner and Tavares out, McJesus and Marchand in. Done. Guaranteed multiple cup wins. Prove me wrong. Well, I think it's going to be hard to get McDavid this summer, maybe next summer. I don't know how Marchand's going to look at 38 after McDavid comes in, but sure.
Well, yeah, you can keep dreaming about your scenarios. I mean, you look at Corey Perry. Some guys are just gamers. Like Marchand, has Perry been hurt? I feel like I've seen him hurt here and there. It's just inevitable, especially the older you get. But I don't know, man. I feel like depending on what the number is, Marchand would be a great addition. Look at every time. Yeah,
I love him.
Every time there's something going on, a big goal,
clutch, man.
Something extracurricular, it's Marchand's right there. You just see that guy. And He looks totally normal in that Florida Panthers uniform. I thought it was going to look really weird seeing him in a Boston uni his whole life. He looks totally at home there. He totally fits the mold of the Florida Panthers, as he did Boston Bruins mentality for a long time. I think he's got a lot more to give. Again, you're not going to ask him to lead the charge and do all the things, but as a fill-in piece for what do you think he would make? $4.5 million or $5?
I think he was looking for seven and a half. Yeah.
It's getting up there. It's tough to say, but I don't think that, on a 2 or 3 year deal, you're trying to win now. Fuck, tell me who else you think is going to make an impact in the direction that this team needs to go. I think they should go after him and see what they can do. Bennett as well. There's some guys out there that, as Treliving mentioned, change the DNA of this team in those critical moments. It's guys like that they're missing, because these guys kind of, I don't think they have the grit, and I don't think they have the character. At least they haven't shown it. That's going to get them over the hump. Like I said, how many times do you got to look back at these Game 7s critical moments where they just power right back, and it's just like clockwork, man. And it takes guys like we're talking about here to change that, and I guess they got to lead the charge in that, and then the big boys have some room and follow suit and say, okay, I need to adopt that as well, and all of a sudden you got this different mentality, different DNA.
Well, Rosie, we're about 10 minutes away from today's guest, 2024 first-round pick of the Maple Leafs, Oshawa Generals captain Ben Danford is going to drop by in 10, and it felt like every day he had a hit go viral on Twitter, so I'm looking forward to talking to him. He's of your ilk, I think, too, in the way he plays the game, right?
Yeah, boy, it's nice having some guys come down the pipeline that play the game the way I think this team needs to play. And again, I think in the last, I don't know, call it like 2014 to 2022, it's like the league and the mentality is like, let's all go with these little fancy pussies that played quadruple A their whole life and are very, very fancy, and they can flip the puck up in the air and catch it and all this shit. And it's like, that's what we're going towards. And Luke Schen's not even in the league anymore. He's in the minors. And then, inevitably the men show up to win the Stanley Cup and mop the floor with these little kids. And everyone has now gone, oh my God, this is still NHL playoff hockey. This is still men playing full contact for the Stanley Cup, and everyone scrambled to adjust. And now guys like Ben Danford, they have value again, and people realize what they contribute to a team. And it's nice that we've got guys like him coming down the pipeline that hopefully can come in and make an impact, because unfortunately the media didn't decide that this game needs to be no hit. It is still full hit, and you need guys like him.
I like it. At the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. So Brad Treliving finally addresses the media yesterday. What were some of your major takeaways? What exactly does a DNA change look like, Rosie?
Well, that was the first question, right? And obviously they're getting into that, but I think, he's not going to point out specific people or anything. I thought that usually those things don't mean a whole heck of a lot, and there's not a whole lot said. But for what he did say, I'm like, yeah, I get what you're putting down, right? He's not going to single guys out or say anything that's going to shed light on a specific individual. That wouldn't be smart, especially in this market. But you read between the lines and you're like, yeah, that's how everyone else feels. Critical moments, that's what is lacking. The performance in the critical moments, the winners. He talks about what champions do when all the cards are on the table, and that we have been lacking that. He talks about all the success they've had, which is great, but that's not what we're looking for. We don't care about regular season success. That's what a lot of people feel in the market, I believe. So I think he hit a lot of the notes that people are talking about. I think that he's talking with his staff and putting names on a board. I imagine they have a big conference room with a big magnet board, and they're moving people around. There's UFAs over here, and there's, a big slots that you can, look at a lineup and say, if we can do this, what does this look like? And everyone sits back and talks about it. And you crunch the numbers and you do all the things you need to do as a general manager. And it seems to me like after watching that press conference, I'm like, I like where his head's at. Sometimes you watch those and you're like, what the hell was that? Like, he didn't address
Yeah.
anything that people are pissed off about. He tiptoed and tap danced around everything. I don't think Treliving did that at all. I got what he was putting down, and by all accounts, it looks like they'll probably move on from Mitch Marner, and they're going to bring in some guys that can be more productive in those critical times and that have the DNA of winners and champions and what it takes to win a Stanley Cup and get past a really good team like the Florida Panthers.
I thought it was a PR masterclass, and we talked about this yesterday, but he indirectly told us, did Brad Treliving, a lot of little things and nuggets, specifically that, yeah, he's moving on from Mitch Marner, without saying he's moving on from Mitch Marner and saving face in that whole situation. But I like that the first time in a long time, it seems, a Maple Leafs executive came out and accepted responsibility and also stated that this is just not good enough. And the current roster, the way it's configured, is not good enough. The nucleus is not good enough. They can't win together. And acceptance is the first sort of phase of trying to figure out and fix things. And I like that fact. Now it's another thing to go out there and make a DNA change. Who are you getting in favor of Marner? I still wonder if they've yet to make a decision on John Tavares, although if you're asking me right now, I think JT is going to come back here at some point. But that's the major question, is how you fill these gaps now if Marner leaves.
Yeah, big time. And unfortunately, this, there's a lot of talk about maybe, taking a back seat this summer and really hitting your stride next summer, because the UFAs that are coming in next year are deal breakers and game changers and serious needle movers, where this year not as much. So it's a tough job. It's a tough position to be in. Obviously, some fans that you listen to are like, just do this. And it's like, that's not even physically possible right now. Like, for example, our super chat there, like let's get McDavid this summer. Like, how on earth, like, what do you got to have all the facts, and you can't be ignorant to the contracts and to the cap implications and everything else that happens. And just because you let Marner go doesn't mean you just snap your fingers and you get all the right pieces in place to replace him right now. It's not always that easy. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, what direction they go, what their cap's going to look like. For once, though, they've got a bunch of space opened up, 22+ million here with Johnny T either not coming back or signing for considerably less. And if Mitch leaves, that's got some room to work with. So it's going to be fun to see.
Today's guest is ready, so let's get to him. The following interview is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers. Get custom ring building delivered in less than 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece Program and an unbeatable pricing policy. Charm Diamond Centers is proudly Canadian-owned and operated since 1972 with more than 85 locations across the country through Charm and their sister brands. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.com as we bring in Oshawa Generals captain, 2024 first-round pick of the Toronto Maple Leafs. It is Ben Danford. What's going on, Ben?
Not much. How's it going, guys?
Very good. Thank you so much for doing this today. I know you've had a couple weeks to sort of decompress. What would you make of your season in the OHL this year?
Yeah, I thought it was a great year. I feel like, our team had, lots of lows and highs throughout the season. Me personally, and as a team, I thought, we had a great run, in playoffs. Get finals again, was huge for us. That was our goal, but, kind of came short, at the end goal. At the end of the day, it was a tough pill to swallow. Going to the finals back-to-back years and losing both times, but I was really proud of our group and what we accomplished. But at the end of the day, it was really tough. But overall, it was a great season.
And wearing the Chedsy on the shoulder, that's pretty awesome, man. A historic franchise and leading the way. What kind of adjustments did you make to become a captain? I mean, you weren't exactly like a wily old 20-year-old, and obviously they saw a lot of leadership qualities in you.
Yeah, I feel like, I'm someone who's a leader by example. Right when I came into the OHL, I was, buying into, doing anything for the team to win, blocking shots, playing the right way, whatever the coaches needed kind of thing. So, I feel like that kind of, had, something to do with, me getting, that honor of being named captain, especially, an organization like Oshawa. So, yeah, we had plenty of leaders in our room, and, to lead a group of guys like that, we had a really tight group. So, it was really fun, and, it was really surreal, to get named and, to have that kind of honor. So.
Benny, we were loving it. I think on the daily on this show, we played a clip of you just hammering somebody in the OHL. You blocked a shot off your neck at some point in time this season. Like, what inspired you to adapt sort of your brand and the way you play the game over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've always been, really competitive, do anything for the team kind of guy, even in minor hockey. And yeah, I feel like this year, when it comes to, I mean, I've always been someone who's been, wanting to sacrifice the body, block shots, things like that. And, the hits kind of came into play this year because, we had a new D coach in Oshawa, Patrick Sexton, and he kind of brought that upon me. Right when we first met, and he saw me play and stuff. He thought that was something I could bring into my game. I'm competitive and someone who can skate well, so he thought that was something I could bring into my game. And yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. It was nice to help the team out that way. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in the market are pretty excited that we got some guys coming down the barrel who don't play like pussies, and to be able to be that physical and that big D man back there. Is it hard to, in this era, make those big hits and play physical with, there's such an emphasis now on headshots and stuff, and league disciplinarian action coming in all the time. If you see a guy coming down the wall and you want to pivot, step up and crush this guy, but he's got his leading with his head, have you had to, I guess you've grown up with that, but is it tough to play physical and still play within the lines that have kind of moved in the last, decade?
Like I wouldn't say so. Obviously, some things would slide a lot more back in the day, but no, there's like at times throughout the year where I'd lay a hit, and I'd always just aim for the chest. I would never obviously no one likes dirty plays, so but yeah, I feel like I maybe one or two might have got like reviewed, but nothing came out of it.
Yeah.
That doesn't really cross my mind when I'm trying to line up a guy. But yeah, I mean, you see it happen all the time. So yeah, it is kind of something you think about maybe a little bit, but
I know he's before your time, but have you ever watched tape of Scott Stevens play hockey?
yeah, no, yeah, sure have.
Jesus, man, that guy used to light people up like shift by shift. And I was going to ask you too about somebody on the Leafs that you've grown fond of over the years, not just because he's a Leaf, but Chris Tanev. When you watch that guy play, what goes through your mind?
Yeah, I think ever since, like, especially now, now as in the Leafs, I watch him that much more. But yeah, I mean, I just the way he plays, I think he's someone who like blocks a lot of shots, plays the right way, has a really good first pass. That was someone going through the draft process last year that I kind of looked up to, and saw comparisons in our game and what maybe I could be at the next level. So yeah, I mean, for him to be in Toronto now, and for me, kind of to got to meet him at like training camp and stuff. So yeah, he's really cool and really down to earth guy. And I hope to learn some stuff off him hopefully soon. So.
Yeah, obviously, a guy that plays like a man would certainly be good to learn from. Jake Muzzin's a guy too who's kind of in with player development now. Have you crossed paths with him as well? And you mentioned Tanev, and then there's Muzzin as well, who I think played the right way on the back end. Do you have a good relationship with him?
Yeah, I mean, I have a great relationship with Muzz. I talk to him a lot throughout the year, whether he's coming to the games and seeing me after, and just talking about my play or doing video sessions with him. We talk a lot over text. Whether we're just looking at NHL clips or hey, are you watching this game? Do you see this? That type of thing. So yeah, I mean, he's an unreal person, someone that I can go to for anything, whether it's hockey or not. Yeah, he's been really good to learn off of this year, and yeah, no, he's been awesome. So.
Where's your mindset at as you enter your off season of training? We just talked about your season just ended a couple weeks ago. Like, do you have a specific goal in mind for next season or what you want to accomplish over the summer into next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially last training camp, like obviously, I didn't really participate that much just because I got injured. But watching the training camp and just watching, the next level, how strong and fast and kind of what it, watching them compete and practice, it was an eye opener for me. And I think, I mean, it's stereotypical answer, but I mean, this summer it's just you got to get bigger and faster and stronger, just keep maturing that way. So I mean, I have to, have a really big summer and, make sure I'm that much better for next season. So,
Mhm. Easton Cowan, obviously you've battled him in the O. Hopefully one day soon you'll be teammates with him, but he plays the game a certain way as well. What's it like to go up against him as a competitor?
yeah, I mean, we kind of went at it a bit in there in the finals. Yeah, I mean, we're actually pretty good buddies, but on the ice, there's no friends out there. So, yeah, I mean, he's a phenomenal player. The way he skates and the way he has that confidence with the puck. He's a hard player to defend, and I wish him the best. At the rest of the Memorial Cup. So, yeah, I mean, he's tough to defend, fun to play against. So.
What kind of player would you say Easton Cowan is? Because I mean, I'll be honest, we watch a lot of Maple Leaf hockey. Don't watch as much, I think, Ontario Hockey League, but he's just been ripping it up. What makes Easton Cowan so hard to defend against?
Yeah, I mean, just like I said, the confidence he has with the puck. He has confidence to make plays, and yeah, he's got really good hockey IQ. He makes everyone around him better, I think. And I mean, when you're able to do that, you're a pretty special player. So yeah, no, I can't wait to see what he does next year. So.
Ben, what are the chances we can get you to film some content at some point in time? You and Jay Rosehill. Not sure if you know this. Rosie had a couple scraps in the NHL back in his day as a member of the Leafs, the Flyers, drafted by the Tampa Bay Lightning. That would be a wicked video if Rosie can bring you through a tutorial. Would you be down for that, Rosie?
Yeah, I don't think he would be hanging out with some old guy.
Ben's like, screw this.
I saw that scrap on the screen there. It looked like that kid was
Yeah.
hugging you heavy. We wanted no business in that department, but there's no shortage of Leafs who are willing to do that in the back. Is anyone stand out to you as far as Leafs legends from the past that you admire?
Yeah, I mean, he's a bit out of my air, but I mean, my dad was a big fan of him and everything. Is like Wendell Clark, obviously.
Yeah, boy.
I mean, he was the captain. Just the way he played. He was physical, competitive guy, obviously on top of all his skills. So, yeah, I mean, I've obviously seen some clips of him, just being physical, being
Being a
a
maniac.
rat out there, I guess. Yeah, exactly.
Different era, man. Different era. Well, Ben, I can't
Yeah.
thank you enough for making the time today. Best of luck this off season. Looking forward to seeing you in Maple Leafs training camp in September. Appreciate this.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks, dude.
Anytime. That is Ben Danford. Good kid, man, and huge hitter. Love that about him.
I know it's good to see some men coming down the pipeline here.
I love that. You're like, well, most guys are pussies now, but you're not.
It's fun to talk to these guys. I mean, Matthew Nyes, he was a little older. Coming out of college, you have some time to kind of develop that a little bit, but it's fun to interview these guys. We've had him on before, Ben, but just their demeanor. Obviously, they're kind of conscious of the media and training and saying the right things and hitting the right points, and that's all fine and dandy. But it's usually you get a sense of what's underneath, and the fact that he's a captain in the Ontario League, had some success already as far as playoff runs and whatnot. I like getting to these guys early and seeing what they're all about. And I think I've kind of decided he's a guy that's coming down the barrel that I'm excited about, that I think that can make a difference, and a big physical D-man who likes to play on that edge. I mean, you can't get enough of them. So it's good we got a high-end one coming down the barrel sooner than later.
Your track record's really good. You're 1-0 because the first time we met Matthew Nyes, you're like, oh shit, you almost climaxed on the screen. So
He was.
Ben, you were so fired up, man.
He got some juices going, man, and I couldn't even have predicted what he'd turn into this quickly. But again, he wasn't an 18-year-old kid. He was 20-something. But yeah, I think with Cowan and Minton and Danford, there's some kids that can come down the lineup. And if you look at the Oilers and different teams, it's like you got to draft well too, and you got to get those kids to make some hay while the sun shines before you got to give them the bag, right? Because there's nothing worse than having a team that's ready, you think can do damage, but guys are off their entry-level contracts, and you got to give the guy you were making 800, you got to give him 3.2 now. It's just you get too many of those going on, you got to blow your team up and start fresh. So drafting is really big, and getting the signings like the Nyes, and we'll see what Cowan can do, and the Minton, Danford. If these guys can come in and in the next 3, 4, 5 years make a serious impact and mentally make that jump and have the maturity level to do so is going to be huge. So it's nice to talk to these kids and see where their head's at. I like a lot of things about these guys.
What are the chances Ben Danford actually knows that you played for the Maple Leafs or knows who you are yet?
Well, just crunching the numbers, we're talking about 15 years ago.
Wait, no. He
Skinner
knew who
was.
Scott Stevens was. He knew who Wendell Clark was, but
I'm not Scott Stevens or Wendell Clark, Nick. Obviously. I was thinking, I'm like, how old was this kid when I was playing? And it's like 3. Yeah. What do you think? I don't think it's just the wrong era, dude. You gotta be a savant to know who I was.
dude, I fucking remember you, and I was like 12 years old, and I'm like, this guy, is he Fraser McLaren? Is he Colt Nor? We had 17 guys like you.
Fraser McLaren. You keep lumping me in with that.
Hey,
guy.
McLaren's
Stole
coming
my
on the show
number.
Monday, or is coming on Tuesday. Fraser McLaren did steal your number, by the way. I was pissed about that. Like, they hang that
I
to the
know.
rafters.
I can't remember my first game for Philly. It's probably the best game I ever had in the big league.
Yeah,
I
you were
scored the
good.
game winner,
Yeah.
and I can't remember if I fought McLaren or Orr, but at some point in time, both of them. It just felt really weird. And there was one time actually, Luke Shen, he loves making fun of me, asking if I realize there's a puck out there. Sometimes I'll be like buzzing so fast that I'm like not really watching and like almost run into the line of guys waiting for the drill in practice. He just cries laughing. And it was my first game for Philly, and Luke was there, and Luke had the puck, or his partner did, and I started like forechecking him, like a neutral zone forecheck, my own guy, because I forgot I was in Toronto, and I just saw an orange jersey and was like, and he was crying, laughing, going, "You forgot what team you were on, didn't you?" And I literally did my first game for the Flyers, but just shows where my head was at. It's a fairly meaty player.
Fair enough. Loved you as a player. Love you even more as a co-host. I was a big Mike Brown guy too, man. I love watching
Browntown.
Mike Brown. He was just buzzing constantly out there.
He would throw punches like he was starting a chainsaw that he was furious at, man. It was
Great
awesome.
dash,
Brownie,
too. That was a vintage duster too. Like,
oof, he was yes, big time. He was a man, big time. A shorter dude who had a lot to prove, and man, he proved it lots. I like Brown. He's a really nice guy too.
At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Now, Rosie, I wanted to tell you about a buddy's wife who's got a really cool business. Meet Ashley, a lifelong Toronto Maple Leafs fan whose love for the team started back in '97 when she went to her very first game at Maple Leaf Gardens with her dad to watch the Leafs take on the Kings. These days, she's a full-time 911 dispatcher, small business owner, and still finds time to catch every Leafs game, including every edition of Leafs Morning Take, especially with her husband, who's just as diehard a fan as she is. Ashley also runs Whiskey Yankee Echo, a shop full of dark-humored stickers, notepads, and keychains made just for first responders. Whether you're a dispatcher, paramedic, police officer, firefighter, corrections officer, or nurse, she's got you covered. She even made us some stickers here at Leafs Morning Take and the Leafs Nation. Check her business out on Etsy at wye911.etsy.com. or wye911.com. That's wye911.com. Support local, support first responders.
Well, it sounds like he has found himself a catch and a half. I think she is someone you would like to meet, it sounds like, but does all the right things, checks all the right boxes, Leafs fan, hardcore, and does all the right things. That first responder stuff's obviously close to my heart. Very cool. That's good to hear about, man. I'll go check that out for sure and encourage everyone else to do the same.
Meantime, we've talked a lot on this podcast about a DNA change. Does Jonathan Toews tickle your fancy, Rosie? Because supposedly he is ready to go. He told his agent, Pat Brisson, the other day he's 100% committed to coming back to the NHL next season. Brisson said everything is open with respect to potential suitors, including Toronto. In fact, he told me directly because I texted Pat yesterday. He's like, firstly, who the fuck are you? Secondly, that's my answer, and you can say that you talked to me. So there it is. But all cards are on the table. He's 37. Hasn't played a game since April 13th, 2023, but he's still Jonathan Toews, man.
Yeah, I would agree. You look at his hockey DB, and he's got 3 Stanley Cups just sitting there in the not so distant past. Interesting thing, man. Went through some personal stuff, some mental stuff. Always difficult, always tough to see, and kind of fell off the map in a hurry and in a big way. But then when he comes back on people's radar here with those tweets and those reports, you start to think about what that guy was. Like, they called him Mr. Serious because he was just the consummate professional. He did things the right way. He understood what it took to win in an era where it was not more difficult to win, but it was more of the stuff that I think the Leafs are lacking, right? So that is intriguing. I imagine there'll be more than a handful of teams whose interest is piqued by this revelation on a chance to get a guy with his pedigree back on the team. I have no idea what he's going to look like, what his speed and his timing and his agility and his abilities out there will be physically with taking that much time off. It's kind of rare to have a guy at that age with that much time off for whatever reason. It's very interesting. I wonder what he's going to command, how much, if there's going to be a bidding war for him, or if someone's just going to throw a flyer at him. I don't know, but I don't know. Like the thought of him in a Maple Leafs uniform, like what would his role be? Would John, like he's similar to John Tavares in some ways. Obviously had more success in a different organization with winning. So I like that idea. I like his experience in winning and knowing what that takes. He was the captain of those teams. He was the leader. He was Mr. Serious. He led the charge. He's not going to do that on the Toronto Maple Leafs, but I think his experience would be invaluable. What kind of money would he make? What do you think he's going to command? What kind of contract? Is it a PTO? I have no idea, but it's certainly an interesting conversation. What's your take on it?
I think it's league minimum. I think he's got to show that he can still play in the NHL, man. We're talking about over 2 years since your last game. And if you're asking me right now, I think the likeliest destination, whether they'll admit it or not, is the Winnipeg Jets. He's from Manitoba. Adam Lowry's out for the next 6 months after surgery. That's their captain. Like, there's a huge void up the middle in general with that team. But I think from the Toews perspective, it would make a lot of sense. But I think Toronto would sniff around for sure, man. You talk about dogs. Jonathan Toews is a dog. I don't care if he's 47, 57, 37. I'm not sure how much left he has in that tank. Like that's a long, long time off. I understand he was going through some stuff, but I think from a team perspective, I'm not giving him more than 1 year at league min to find out what he truly has left.
And sure, that's what you would want to get him at. Is someone else going to go, no, I got you at 1.1, and then someone's else like, well, I can do 1.3. Like, it'll be interesting to see how much interest there is in the guy. Obviously, you'd love to get him and try him out. Like Pacioretty, for example, everyone thought that his injury history was too much to overcome, and no one gave him anything. And you got him on a PTO for crying out loud, and he turned out to be fairly valuable at that. So, again, I agree with you. I think that they could. I'm not going to say, like people are so annoying because they're like, what you think you think it's 2012 and he's going to come back and be limit. It's like, nobody said that, dude, but his pedigree is this, his experience is that, his personality is X, and you're like, wow, he checks some boxes. And again, he's not a $5, $6, $7 million player. He's going to be at the low end of the spectrum. And it's like, okay, well, where are you going to spend $900,000 elsewhere on an absolute nobody? That's who. So my interest is certainly piqued by what he would look like. And he knows how to train at the highest level. He knows how to get in shape. He knows his body as well as any, a professional athlete would. I imagine he would come in and say, you say what he has to give and what he has left in the tank. Well, I imagine after a lot of soul searching and going through what he did personally, I imagine his perspective on things is exactly where it should be. I imagine his hunger and his drive to maybe finish on a note that he can live with, that he's proud of, is probably forefront in his mind. I imagine he'd be a man who is willing to, finish his career on the right note, and is willing to, I think he's got a lot left in the tank, and is willing to empty it to try to get his career to where he wants it and finish on the right note. I mean, that's important to athletes. So it's certainly intriguing. I'm going to be watching this and see where the buzz goes and how much, if at all, the Maple Leafs are trying to persuade him to come to Toronto. It would be a very interesting story.
Screw it. Bring in Patrick Kane too. Kane and Toews. Let's go retro Chicago Blackhawks on this bitch, because those guys are dogs. I think Toews is a dog, and at the very least, I'm making that call. And Brisson did tell me next couple weeks they're going to sift through options, and I would think leading to July 1, they'll make a decision.
Imagine when you're rolling through the bottom six, and you've got your guys on the team that are rolling out there, and then boom, Jonathan Toews throws his leg over, and he's got a big face off, and like he's a guy that I would not be chattering my teeth going, oh my God, Toews is out there, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But again, with his pedigree, I imagine he's got something to prove, and he'll probably show you something.
I like it, and maybe he fills that Max Pacioretty role. I know a lot of people in the chat asking about Pacioretty. Doesn't sound like he's made a decision. I had heard a couple months ago that it was pretty draining on him, tough on him to be away from his family this year, and I think there's serious consideration for retirement right now for Pacioretty. And if I'm looking at it right now, I would say it's unlikely that he comes back to the Maple Leafs, but for what he got and his role, I thought he exceeded expectations, considering in September we were talking about Max Pacioretty as a PTO, and we're like, what is he going to bring to the table? But scored some big goals for this team, some bigger goals, some guys making way more money. I'll say that.
That is true. Again, there's a guy that's a little bit older that people question foot speed and this and that. But
yeah,
I mean, I always look at the pedigree of these players. Like, what have you done in the past? And if it's all the right things, again, they don't just hand over the captaincy to the Montreal Canadiens. And he was that guy, and he was kind of a high-end goal scorer. And he's not stupid. He's not coming here saying, well, I'm going to take Willie Nylander's job. He's not stupid. So he's like, okay, I'm at this age, I've done X, and here's what I have left in the tank. What can I do with that? And I think he adopted the role amazingly. Like, some of the biggest hits, like probably the top 4 or 5 biggest hits of the entire season were all Max Pacioretty just crushing guys.
I know.
Again, he comes from an era where, it was more of a manly style of play that was physical, and he knew what it looked like, and he adopted it, which is not something that he had to do in the past because of his high-end skill set. But again, when you get him in a position and the puck comes to his stick, his pedigree, he knows how to put the puck in the net. So I think that Jonathan Toews could maybe be a guy like that, and have the, just not a guy that's going to grip the stick too tight, or the moment's going to be too big for him. He's been through it all. I mean, his experience is as good as anyone in the world you could ever find from any era, man. Captain of 3 cups. It's unbelievable. So something to look at for sure. On if you lose Pacioretty, even more reason to think you got to fill that slot with somebody.
Speaking of which, it's time now for the crispy hot take of the day, presented by the Ninja Crispy 4-in-1 portable glass air fryer.
Meet the first of its kind, the Ninja Crispy portable cooking system. The power of a full-sized air fryer in the palm of your hand, so you can cook big or small batches. Just prep it, crisp it, serve it, and store it all in one.
What happens first, Rosie? We get ourselves a crispy, a Ninja Crispy 4-in-1 portable glass air fryer. You get your alumni jacket.
Well, it depends who's working the phones harder, I guess.
It is an all-in-one system that includes 4-quart, 6-cup Tupperware glass containers and 2 storage lids. The Ninja Crispy is thermal shock resistant. I can go from frozen to crispy in minutes with the Crispy Power Pod. You get the power of a full-size air fryer in the palm of your hands. The 4-quart container fits 4 pounds of chicken or veggies. Cook a personal-sized meal in 7 minutes in the 6-cup container. Max Crisp. Bake, air fry, and recrisp with the Ninja Crispy. You can prep, cook, and store anything from crispy favorites to one-dish meals. Visit their website in the link in the show description, and stay tuned for your chance to win a free Ninja Crispy. And this is perfect because it piggybacks off what we were just talking about. You ready for this from producer Vic?
Yeah, Vicky, what do you got today, boy?
The Leafs are better off taking a page from their 90s handbook and signing a bunch of older veterans rather than taking a swing for a big fish. And he's relating to the likes of Kane, Toews, Duchesne, Perry, Ben. What are your thoughts, Rosie?
I think there's a place for those guys. Again, with Treliving and everybody that knows the shortcomings of this team, they just seem to lack the ability to go into a big game and find their best. And it's a mental thing, it's a character thing, it's a balls thing. And it seems like, again, they pull her back to neutral and they tiptoe into those games and they get smoked every single time. So the DNA needs to change of bringing some men with some grit, with some experience, with some character, and have them kind of adopt that mentality. And hopefully it wears off on some of the other guys who maybe don't have that quite so naturally. Do you bring in every one of those guys? I think there'd be, a lot of question marks going around Leafs Nation, but Perry, for example, I understand that he's 40, but it's just like, man, everyone keeps saying that these guys can't do it anymore, but with the nutrition and the recovery and the medicine and the resources available to these guys, they don't fall apart the way they used to. I mean, you used to Bobby Orr. I mean, if you had Bobby Orr's knee injury today, you could probably fix that over the weekend. And with all this microscopic surgery and all this stem cells, like, who knows? These guys are proving that they can be factors deeper into their careers than they have in the past. So, I mean, I think they are absolutely missing a guy like Perry, missing some of these guys that can really step up and make a difference with, the locker room stuff and the character stuff. And that doesn't mean that they're just a good guy in the locker room. It means day to day being around this guy, being on the team, it's infectious and it rubs off on people on how you present yourself and how you approach those critical games and those critical moments, because all the Leafs are trying to do now, they've got the Matthews and the Nylanders and they've got these people in place and the goaltenders and the D. They're just trying to get a culture and a DNA that's conducive to being the team that overwhelms and overcomes that other really good team. Say it's in the second round of the playoffs like this year, and you're the ones that come out victorious. They always seem to fall backwards and get ran over. And that has to change if they're obviously going to get to the next level. And there's a lot of different thoughts and ways you can go about that, but bringing in a guy like a Corey Perry, or, maybe it is a Jonathan Toews, or maybe it is, one of those older guys to help. I know they've tried that with Marleau and Thornton, but those guys had never won anything. So it's going to be interesting to see. They're going to make some moves, and I don't know what they're going to be, but I think some of that veteran leadership is necessary.
Definitely. And I was just going to play devil's advocate and bring that just up. Like, haven't we tried that before with Pacioretty and Simmons and Marleau and Thornton? And
not one of those guys has won anything. Not one of those guys has been to the dance. So,
yeah.
I mean,
the other thing is, like, these guys are going to accept these roles. Like, you call Jamie Benn up and you're like, hey, you're going to be our fourth line left winger. How does he feel about that? And then the other thing too is, like, you want to bring in all these guys, not you specifically, but like, they're attached to the hip of contracts. Like, I don't know how they're getting rid of Järnkrok, David Kampf, Ryan Reeves. Like, there's just so many guys that I think no longer have purpose on this roster, and they're going to be there because I don't know who's taking them right now. You're going to have to wait till waivers and bury them on the Marlies again.
Well, what's wrong with that? Like, if David can't, like, that's a heavy contract. That's the one. I understood the Revo thing. To come in and try to say, like, double down on, we are going to, lead with physicality because we get pushed around too much. I get that stuff. That's what you do with those contracts that are no longer useful. And some teams aren't willing to do it because it costs the owners too much money. The Maple Leafs don't give a shit about $2 or $3 million. Send it to Robidaw Island for all they care. It doesn't matter. And if you're able to bring in other people that make more sense, that make the changes that are necessary, maybe Järnkrok needs to go through waivers. And if he doesn't get picked up, then there's his value to everyone in the league, and he goes and plays on the Marlies. And if things change, you can bring him back up. I don't know. I don't like talking about burying people in the minors, but if there's a knock on Treliving, it's probably those three exact contracts, correct? It's Camp, it's Reeves, and I believe he signed Järnkrok as well, right?
He didn't. I
can't remember. It doesn't matter.
I think it was Dubas who got Järnkrok.
Yeah, those types of things, though, they might not work out. But again, Revo, they've already shown they can put him on waivers and put him in the Marlies. I don't think there's going to be a spot for him on this team, just with the direction it's headed and everything else. Like, Revo he's been a magician staying in that league as long as he has, and he's done a damn good job, and he's had a hell of a career. This might be where it comes to an end in that league, though.
We have a poll, credit to producer Vic for putting up this poll earlier on. Do you remember Rosie? 81% say yes, 18% say no, 120 people casted their vote there.
I'll take those odds.
That's pretty damn good numbers.
Got some older folks in the chat. Love you guys.
Yes, sir. A couple other things to get to. We'll wrap here. Pierre LeBrun stating yesterday there's no chance Morgan Rielly would waive his no movement clause.
I saw that. Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of funny where I keep thinking about that poster right over there in my kid's room. It's like 5 guys, and it's like all-star, superstar, defenseman or whatever, and Morgan Rielly's on the poster. of all the guys in the league they could use. And then you look and he's like our sixth guy that's kind of like, come on, man, pull your weight. And you see OEL out there, and you see Tanev doing his things, and the different guys that are making waves out there. Even Benoit is playing the right way. And then sometimes it's like, fuck, the only thing I noticed about Morgan was being absolutely out to lunch, going the opposite direction of the grain and getting roasted and missing his guy and scrambling. And I think defensively, he wasn't as good as he could be, especially during the regular season, which may or may not matter. But that he has a little thing about him where he kind of can show up in the playoffs, though. So that's one shining little gleaming light for Morgan Rielly for sure. But again, a $7 million D-man, you want to be getting lots of production out of that guy, and it's not quite happening right now. But I don't see them coming to him and saying, "Can we move you?" And even if they did, and he said yes, who's desperately wanting Morgan Rielly at $7.5 million or whatever? That's another factor. So a lot of things in place to get him to be moved. I don't think it's going to happen. At the end of the day, I think he just needs to be his best self and play like he did kind of earlier in his career, which is a big ask, actually.
Well, that would be part of the culture change for me. 5 years left at $7.5 million. And if you really want to change the culture and the DNA of this team, why not the longest tenured Maple Leaf and Morgan Rielly? Like, that's my consideration. But I tend to agree with the salary cap going up, $7.5 million per season. If he could play closer to what he has been in the past, I think that contract will look okay. But considering the year he just had, I know he's a bit better in the playoffs. I've not soured on Morgan Rielly, but I'm down on him. I will say I'm curious to see what a full year playing with Brandon Carlo does, because I think when Carlo came in, Rielly looked a lot different. He was much better. I think a lot of people can admit after Carlo came in. So what is like a full year, a camp together of getting to know each other? What does that look like for Morgan Rielly? Maybe it's good things.
I mean, that's all you can hope. I think at this point, it doesn't appear like anything else is being changed. By all accounts, really good guy too. It's hard doing this show and criticizing players and stuff when, if I was on that team, I'd be like, who's this asshole? Like, he doesn't even know the guy. But all I'm doing is talking about what I see on the ice. That's all it is. It's unfortunately, when you're on a team, it's so much more than that, and we're not privy to that. And it doesn't matter, and that's not my job. But by all accounts, a really good guy as well, which certainly does mean something. But I mean, you look at Darnell Nurse. People, oh my God, people wanted him. People wanted his head for a $9 million defenseman who just got lit up night after night and was completely lost at times, and people couldn't stand the guy. And he's kind of found himself, and he's found himself to be valuable, and he doesn't stand out in negative ways anymore. And Morgan Rielly just needs a way to kind of, I think, tighten up defensively and maybe find a way to just be in position more often, and then let the rest come. But again, one shining kind of light on him is that he tends to do better in the playoffs, which is more than I can say for some of the players on Maple Leaf sweater lately.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And lastly, the Seattle Kraken hiring Lane Lambert as their head coach. He ran the PK last year. The Leafs under Lambert went from 21st to 8th in goals allowed. So they have now a vacancy, an associate coach. Two names that come to mind right away, by the way. Bruce Boudreau goes without saying, but how about Phil Housley? We're talking about the that vintage in that era. I still remember vividly when the Maple Leafs acquired Phil Housley. I took the last period off high school, I think it was, and I called it, and I was like, it's trade deadline day, and I was so jacked because they got Phil Housley. It didn't work out, but he could be an option to fill this void here.
Yeah, possibly. I honestly don't. To me, what that guy needs to do is have a mentality within those walls, right? And that's getting along and understanding the direction and the vision of the head coach and complimenting him really well. Knowing his stuff and what they need to do. Like, he'll probably run the PK, right? So you'll get the PK and come into this training room here, and everyone sits in their chair, and they got the projector going, and he has set up video on, here's what the team we're playing does on their power play that we need to defend, and here's what we've been doing lately, here's what we do well that we want to double down on, here's some stuff we need to get away from. You run the PK like that. It's not the biggest thing in the world, but the biggest thing to me is that they gel with the players, gel with the coaches, understand the vision, and understand their role. Who it is, I don't know. I don't really care. Again, I think it just needs to be a good fit for being in that coaching staff and the locker room and everything else. But congrats to Lane Lambert. I think he did fine here, and obviously people noticed, and he's got a big promotion, which I don't blame him for taking them up on that. It's going to be exciting for him.
It is incredible how many times Leafs are poached, whether it's the waiver wire, coaching staff. The rest of the league loves the Toronto Maple Leafs. It feels that way. One year as a Leaf, and I know he's coming off a tough time as the head coach of the New York Islanders, but boom, plucked. Seattle's had 17 coaches in like 4 years of existence here.
Because everyone knows when they leave the shit show magnifying glass, it is Toronto. They go and they, oh my God, this is going to be easy.
I love Lane Lambert. Good luck with that Seattle roster. I think they're lost out there, man. They're absolutely lost. That Chandler Stevenson contract, good luck with that. You don't have a goalie. I guess Joey Decord's your guy, but the Grubauer contract, that's it's going to be a tough job. And I don't understand this league, man. Just the turnover in coaches. I know we had my guy Danny Balsman a couple weeks ago. I still think that he was jobbed in Seattle. And now, especially when I see it's Lane Lambert that they replace Dan Balsma with, who won a Stanley Cup. And nothing against Lane Lambert. It's just the turnover in this league is incredible. And then, for example, I watched the conference final, and Canes fans are coming at me because I questioned the job security of Rod Brind'Amour after losing yet again in a conference final. Pete DeBoer, 9-0 in Game 7, lose yet again in the conference final. And nobody questions those guys.
Yeah, I think it's different. It's subjective to the roster and what you have to work with.
That was wild last night, Pete DeBoer, to pull Jake Ottinger the way he did, man. They're serious. Casey DeSmith is going to lead you past Edmonton in a series-deciding game. Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was ballsy. I don't know who in our group chat kind of laughed and said Ottinger is just put on this pedestal as this messiah, and he did friggin' one series back years ago now, and since then he's been kind of shaky. But I don't know. You look at Brind'Amour, I don't see him. Like you got to look like who is the problem and how do we get better? Firing Rod Brind'Amour in Carolina, I don't think makes that team any better.
Yeah, but everybody's got an expiry date. Like,
I know, but you're just saying. So you're just saying fire for the sake of firing. Oh shit, he's been here for long. Guess we got to fire him. Like you're not getting better by firing him. Is my thing. I think that he got the most out of that team. You look at the way they're constructed and. They did very well by all accounts, but again, ran into the Panthers. They don't really have a superstar to like be the guy to get them over the hump. I just, you have to think of it as in, if we're going to make a move for the sake of making moves, or are we going to be better by making this move? And firing Rod Brind'Amour, whoever you bring in, I don't look at that squad saying, oh yeah, they're better this year. They've made the changes to get over the hump. I wouldn't agree with that. Sometimes I would with who's the coach, but not in that scenario.
I just like changing the narrative because everybody likes to poke fun at the Maple Leafs. What about the Buffalo Sabres? We talk about them quite a bit, but there's demons there for Carolina. There's demons there for the Dallas Stars. Last time I checked, neither team has won in recent memory. I know they had the Brett Hall moment and the Canes did their thing way back when, but it's a long time, man. And these teams continue to fail in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Just shows you how difficult it truly is. And support is sick, kids. Michael, thank you so much for the super chat. Kyprios is a big fan of Mitch. He suggests 34 is the problem. He believes the core is not tight, and Mitch is dissatisfied with team structure. Kyprios proposes traded 34 for a gamer, and Mitch might stay. That's beef right there. I don't know if I can comment on that. I don't know.
I was kind of wondering when the narrative of Matthews is going to start. I could see it coming this year. And it's there after the playoffs, but you talk about passengers and that type of thing. It's, he needs to be a guy to grit his teeth and say, get on my back. And he hasn't been that, not even close. He's kind of been that guy that puts her back to neutral and tiptoes. So I don't know, all valid points. We'll see what happens. It's just, are they ready to give up on a 69 goal scorer just a year ago? And a guy they just handed the captaincy to after stripping John Tavares of it. I can see why that's a narrative and an idea of, hey, does this make the team better? Hey, I'm all for that. But as far as pulling triggers and getting things done to that degree, I don't see MLSE taking that route at all. Not right now.
Want to get in the action for Stanley Cup playoffs at Bet365? They got you from game props, player props, totals, and the money line. You can even bet on futures like series winners, conference champions, and Stanley Cup champions. and much, much more. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get in on the game. An official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 or older. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you're someone you know has a gambling problem, visit ConnexOntario.ca, man. No hockey till next Wednesday. Like, what the hell? What are we going to bet on? Rosie,
What are we supposed to do? Bet on baseball? Oh, my God.
No, I can't do that. I can't do that.
Seriously.
Yeah.
How about I do look ahead to Wednesday, though, and the
Yes.
Oilers are favored. I know they have home ice advantage.
Who do you like
now,
to win the cup? I was going to ask you that. Just who do you like winning the cup?
I like the Florida. I don't like the Florida Panthers winning the cup, but I think that if I'm betting, my money's on the Florida Panthers. I think they are a goddamn machine with not a whole hell of a lot of holes. I think the only thing that could derail them is Bobber either getting hurt or getting off of his game somehow, or else some key figures getting hurt as well. But from the coaching staff to, oh God, all the way down, their depth, their leadership, their experience, it's just the recipe, man. It's the template. I've been saying it all year, and I think they are destined for back-to-back cups.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Oilers might have something to say about that, so it's going to be an interesting series. It is interesting to me seeing that juggernaut of a team is the underdogs going into Game 1.
Pretty much a pick 'em right now in terms of the Stanley Cup final. Last I saw last night, the early odds were out, and it was a pick 'em. I'm going to go with the Oilers, so we'll go head-to-head here. I just think it's McDavid's time, and it reminds me a lot, again, I've been saying this for a couple of weeks, but of 08, 09. Crosby loses year one to Detroit, plays them again in the second year, and wins that cup. I just think the intensity, the professionalism, the business-like mentality on McDavid's face just tells me, like, I know they're playing on an unbelievable team. Don't forget, Detroit was incredible back in the day too, and Pittsburgh persevered. Players like McDavid, this is like one of one. They find a way. They just find a way. And you look at this run for Edmonton now, 12-2 in the last 14. They lose Zach Hyman. Don't skip a beat. Next man up, next man up, next man up. So would I be shocked if Florida wins? No. But I just feel I've been feeling this for the last 2 months, even dating back when the Oilers were just starting against LA in round one. This is their year. This is their time. So I'm going to roll. I'm going to stay with Edmonton. And I know I put this out yesterday. I have 4 different cup tickets on the Oilers and nothing on the Panthers. I had something on Dallas, Carolina, and Edmonton, nothing on Florida. I think I'm just going to let it ride here.
Yeah, I mean, if that happens, they would certainly deserve it to get by the best and the champs and the former champs.
They beat some good teams along the way, you know?
Oh, big time. And you mentioned, Sidney and how he had to get it done. Crosby by learning the lessons. Gretzky and Messi are the exact same way. So maybe it'll play out that way. Again, I just don't think the hockey gods work that way all the time, like it's a fairy tale, but there is history to suggest that is how it sometimes goes. So it's going to be a hell of a series. Kind of sucks we got to wait till Wednesday, but at least everyone will be chomping at the bit for more hockey as it's been coming to us hot and fast every single night now. Get a little break and then prime for the final two. You talk about Dallas and talk about Carolina. There's only one team at the end of the day that gets it done. Everyone else failed in one way or another. So going to be pretty exciting. And like you say, it's basically a pick 'em. We're set for a really good series.
A lot of stamina on today's podcast, Rosie. We went an hour and 10 minutes.
We keep going deep on these ones where everyone's like, "Oh, I must say you're done your podcast." I'm like, we go all through the summer, dude. It is pretty much a 12-month-a-year gig, and we are not having trouble finding stuff to talk about. As an hour and 15, we're almost going here when people think we have nothing to talk about. There's never a shortage. Tune in here. Smash that subscribe button. Share with your friends. Like the button. Hit the like button and stuff, right? That's what you say as a YouTuber.
Yeah, man. I'm on these dating apps, and the one question I'm asked daily is like, what do you talk about when the Leafs season is done? And it's getting irritating because there's just
girls
everything to talk.
Yeah,
exactly. Like, what do you talk about? I continue to talk about the Maple Leafs. I try not to be sarcastic. I'm trying to turn a leaf on that. So I'm like, I talk about the latest news and notes surrounding the Toronto Maple Leafs. And that's the great thing about covering this team, Rosie. Never a dull day, man. Look at this week alone, how much we covered, right?
Yeah, I know. I was going to say there's never a dull moment and never a lack of stuff to talk about, obviously. But you can take one of those sweet little girls and she's a blank slate and you can teach her all about the Leafs and where we're at and what we're doing. Look at it as a positive, dude.
I want to bring them to a Stanley Cup final game. Well, that's not going to happen again. Not even a conference final game.
Not this year.
No.
Not this year.
Okay, Rosie, good stuff. Everybody in the chat, you guys were incredible at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcasts. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review. We are in podcast form. That's revolting behavior too. People on social trying to trip us and being like, "Hey, are you a podcast?" Yeah, we're a podcast. I say it 17 times every edition of the show, but I digress. TheLeafsNation.com too. Thank you to Ben Danford for dropping by. For Jay Rosehill, I'm Nick Alberga. Thank you to producer Vic, and we'll talk on Monday in June. Peace out. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.